1 month after Jen Hamilton announced her split from her husband Brian, the social media star now revealing the reason for the divorce, and it appears to be much more complicated than even she realized at first.
Jen Hamilton did not just lose a marriage. She lost the version of her life she thought was real. For years, fans saw the funny nurse, the mother, the author, the woman who could make chaos feel survivable. But behind the videos, Jen says Brian was living a second life. And when the truth surfaced, it did not just break her heart. It rewrote every memory. The breakup that first sounded peaceful. When Jen Hamilton first announced her separation from Brian Hamilton, she tried to handle it with grace. The message sounded painful but careful. After years together, 2 children, and a life that many followers had seen in small pieces online, Jen and Brian said they were parting ways after a long shared history of love, friendship, and complicated emotions. At first, it sounded like one of those mature, heartbreaking endings. Not clean, not easy, but respectful. A marriage that had reached a point where both people needed space. Jen did not come out swinging. She did not immediately spill the ugliest details. She did not ask the internet to attack anyone. In fact, she seemed to be protecting everyone. She was protecting Brian. She was protecting their sons, Ellis and Luke. She was protecting the memory of a marriage that had meant something to her. And maybe, in some way, she was protecting herself too. Because when you have loved someone for years, you do not want the ending to make the whole story feel fake. But then, Jen came back with a very different kind of message. No polished statement, no gentle wording, no soft explanation. This time, she said the videos online were getting wild. Her kids knew, everyone close to her knew, and she was finally going to give people the truth. Then she used the phrase that changed everything: double life. That was the moment the story stopped sounding like an ordinary divorce. Because a double life is not just a mistake. It means there was a version of Brian that Jen says she never fully knew. It means there were things happening behind her back while she was still trying to make sense of the marriage in good faith. And that is what hit people so hard. Jen was not only grieving a breakup, she was grieving the man she thought Brian was. The public Jen and the private pain. Jen Hamilton became loved online because she never seemed fake. As a labor and delivery nurse, she built a platform around honesty, motherhood, birth, bodies, marriage, emotions, and the kind of chaos most people try to hide. She could be funny, direct, warm, messy, and comforting all at once. That is why people trusted her. She was not selling perfection. She was showing real life with humor. She could talk about painful things without making them feel hopeless. She could joke in one moment and say something deeply human in the next. That balance made millions of people feel like they knew her. But that is also the trap of social media. When someone shares so much, viewers start assuming they see everything. They see the jokes, the family references, the marriage moments, the kids, the work stories, the vulnerable captions. And from those pieces, they build a full picture. But a full picture online is still only a picture. People saw Jen's personality. They saw her work. They saw her humor. They saw the version of her marriage that existed in public. But they did not see every private conversation, every lonely night, every unresolved issue, or every moment where she may have felt something was wrong but could not prove it yet. That is the deeper twist of this story. It was not just that Brian allegedly had a double life. It is that Jen was also living 2 realities without realizing it. There was public Jen, funny, successful, strong, open, and loved by strangers. Then there was private Jen, confused, hurting, carrying stress, and trying to make a marriage work while missing information that would have changed everything. That is why her confession felt bigger than gossip. It exposed how a person can be visible to millions and still unseen in the one place that matters most. Jen could help women through birth. She could comfort strangers through pain. She could write a book, raise children, work long hospital shifts, and make people laugh online. But according to her, she still did not know what was really happening inside her own marriage. That contradiction is what made people stop scrolling. Because if someone as open and emotionally intelligent as Jen could miss the truth for that long, then anyone can. The double life claim. When Jen finally spoke clearly, she said Brian had a double life with another woman. She claimed the woman was 56 years old. She also said she had been the only one working for a long time because she wanted to take stress off Brian. That detail made the story even more painful, because Jen was not just at home doing nothing while suspicion built. She was working. She was at the hospital. She was caring for patients. She was giving energy to other people during some of the most intense moments of their lives. And according to Jen, while she was doing that, Brian found time for someone else. That is why her pain sounded so raw. It was not only about the alleged affair, it was about the imbalance. She had been trying to protect him from pressure, and now she felt that kindness had been used against her. Betrayal hurts in layers. The first layer is the secret itself, the other person, the lying, the hidden messages, the missing time, the realization that someone you trusted had a whole part of their life you were not allowed to see. But the second layer can hurt even more. It is the moment you look back and realize your own sacrifices may have made the betrayal easier to hide. The late shifts, the trust, the benefit of the doubt, the excuses you made because you loved them. That is why Jen said she should have left earlier. But that sentence is complicated. From the outside, people always ask, why didn't she leave sooner? But inside a long marriage, people do not make choices with all the facts. They make choices with hope, children, history, guilt, love, fear, and memories. Jen and Brian had years together. They had a family. They had tender moments. They had a public history and a private one. You do not delete that overnight, even when the truth is devastating. That is why Jen described it almost like a death, not because Brian was gone physically, but because the version of him she believed in was gone. The future she imagined was gone. The memories she trusted suddenly felt different. Moments that used to comfort her now came with questions. Was that real? Did he mean that? When did things change? How much did I not know? That is the brutal part of betrayal. It does not only damage the present, it goes backward and contaminates the past. Jen did not just have to leave a marriage. She had to reprocess years of her life. The detail that made it even worse. One of the most shocking details Jen shared was what the alleged other woman reportedly said. According to Jen, the woman said she knew about Jen and that Brian talked about her all the time, but she did not realize Jen had so many followers. That sentence is small, but it is brutal, because it suggests Jen was not completely hidden. She was known. Her existence was part of the conversation. Her name was there. Her marriage was there. And still, according to Jen's version, the relationship continued. That made the betrayal feel even colder. For many people watching, this was the point where the story stopped being just sad and started feeling humiliating. Because Jen was not only dealing with the pain of another woman, she was dealing with the idea that her life, her marriage, and her public identity were all discussed while she was still unaware of what was really happening. Then there was the follower detail. The woman allegedly did not know Jen had so many followers. That almost sounds absurd in the middle of heartbreak, but it shows how modern this entire situation is. In another era, this would have been a private family collapse, painful, messy, but mostly contained. For Jen, it became something else. Her marriage ended in the same world where she had built a massive audience. Her grief was personal, but the reaction was public. Her followers wanted answers. Strangers made theories. People began filling the gaps with rumors. Jen seemed to understand that the story was already moving without her, so she decided to speak. Not every detail, not every receipt, not everything the internet wanted, but enough to say, stop guessing, stop inventing, and stop turning this into something it is not. That is why her tone mattered so much. She was not trying to sound perfect. She sounded devastated, angry, shocked, and exhausted. and that made people believe the emotion behind it. She also said she was done being people's PR manager. That line may be one of the strongest moments in the whole story, because it means she was tired of making the truth sound cleaner for someone else's benefit. She was tired of managing how people saw Brian while she was the one carrying the damage. She was tired of protecting the image of a person she now felt had not protected her. That is not just anger. That is a woman reclaiming the story. Why her first statement changed. The most painful part is that Jen's first version of the breakup sounded so different from the one she later told. At first, she spoke like someone trying to preserve dignity. She said the situation was complicated. She asked for privacy. She seemed embarrassed and heartbroken, but still careful. She did not want people going after Brian. She did not want chaos around her children. That first statement matters because it shows where she was emotionally at the time. She was still grieving the marriage, as if both people were standing in the same truth. But once the double life claim came out, the grief changed. It became something sharper, because now she was not only mourning the end, she was questioning the entire foundation. That happens in many betrayals. At first, people try to explain the pain in softer words. We grew apart. Things were complicated. We both need healing. Nobody is the villain. Sometimes that is true. But sometimes those are the words people use before they are ready to face what really happened. They are emotional placeholders. They let the heart survive one more day before the full truth lands. For Jen, the placeholder collapsed. She said she did not know this person anymore. That line is devastating because it means the betrayal did not just make her angry. It made her feel like a stranger had been standing inside her marriage. And once that happens, even the beautiful memories become confusing. A birthday, a family trip, a quiet night, a kind message, a tender moment, all of it becomes unstable. You do not know whether to treasure it or question it. You do not know whether love existed alongside the lie or whether the lie had been there longer than you want to admit. That is why betrayal can feel like losing your own mind. You are not only trying to understand what someone did, you are trying to understand how you did not see it. And Jen's story connected because so many people know that feeling. They know what it is like to trust someone longer than they should have. They know what it is like to shrink their own needs so the relationship can survive. They know what it is like to make excuses, then feel foolish when the truth finally arrives. But Jen's message was not only shame, it was also permission. Permission to admit you stayed too long without hating yourself. Permission to be embarrassed and still tell the truth. Permission to grieve someone who hurt you. Permission to say, I loved a version of this person that may not have fully existed. That is what made her speaking out feel powerful. She was not trying to look healed. She was trying to survive honestly. Brian's silence and the internet's reaction. As Jen's videos spread, one thing became obvious. Brian had not publicly responded in the same emotional way. That silence created a vacuum. And the internet hates a vacuum. When one person speaks and the other stays quiet, people rush to fill the empty space. Some assume silence means guilt. Others say it means legal caution, privacy, or an attempt to protect the children. The truth is, outsiders do not know. And because Brian has not publicly answered every detail, the fair way to tell this story is to say these are Jen's claims. But emotionally, the silence still mattered. Jen was crying, explaining, processing, and trying to stop false rumors. Brian was mostly absent from the public conversation. That imbalance made Jen's pain feel even louder. It also turned the story into something the internet could not stop dissecting. People began looking backward. They rewatched old clips. They searched for signs. They tried to identify when the marriage changed. They looked for hints in Jen's older videos. They wanted a timeline, a villain, a confession, an apology, and a clean ending. But real pain does not work like that. Jen seemed to know how dangerous it could become. She asked people not to attack others on her behalf. She made it clear that her children knew enough and that this was her family's real life, not just entertainment. Still, there is an uncomfortable truth here. The same platform that gave Jen support also made her heartbreak impossible to contain. That is the strange cost of healing online. People can love you through the worst moment of your life, but they can also turn that moment into content. They can comfort you, defend you, overstep for you, and demand more details from you all at the same time. Jen's story became public because she chose to speak. But once she spoke, the audience became part of the story too. That is a hard thing to carry when you are already broken. Healing out loud. The most important thing Jen said was not about Brian. It was about herself. She said she wanted to heal out loud. She wanted to show other women that leaving something bad can hurt badly and still be the right thing. She wanted women to know they are loved, deserving of respect, kindness, and honesty. She told them to trust their intuition. That is where the story becomes bigger than one marriage. Because many women understood what she meant before she explained it. They understood lowering their needs so someone else does not feel guilty. They understood staying because leaving feels too terrifying. They understood protecting a partner's image while privately falling apart. They understood knowing something is wrong before they have proof. Jen also spoke about intimacy issues in the marriage. She said Brian did not have much interest in her in that way, and that she repressed her own natural human desires so she would not make him feel bad. That detail is not just personal, it explains the emotional pattern. Jen was not describing one sudden betrayal after a perfect marriage. She was describing years of shrinking, adjusting, and convincing herself to need less. That is what made the double life claim so devastating. If she had already been making herself smaller to protect him, then finding out he allegedly had another life made every sacrifice feel even more painful. That is why her healing out loud matters. She is not only saying, "He hurt me," she is saying, "I am done disappearing." That is the real storyline. The double life did not only belong to Brian, it forced Jen into one too. Publicly, she was funny, strong, successful, nurturing, and loved. Privately, she was questioning herself, carrying stress, and trying to make peace with a version of marriage that may not have been honest. Healing means those two Jens have to become one again. The public woman and the private woman. The funny woman and the devastated woman. The nurse who helps others and the person who now needs help herself. That is why her audience stayed with her. They are not watching a perfect person handle divorce perfectly. They are watching someone refuse to lie about how ugly healing can look. And sometimes, that is more helpful than pretending to be strong. What nobody knew about Brian. The title says nobody knew this about Brian Hamilton. The obvious answer is Jen's claim that he had a double life. But the deeper answer is that nobody knew what Jen's life with him had become, behind closed doors. Fans knew Brian as part of Jen's world. Her husband. The father of their children. The man connected to years of memories. But according to Jen, the truth made her feel like she did not know him at all. That is the part that breaks a person. When a stranger betrays you, it hurts. But when someone you built a life with becomes unfamiliar, it shakes your trust in yourself. You start wondering what you missed. You replay conversations. You question instincts. You feel embarrassed for loving someone who may have been hiding so much. But Jen's story does not end with embarrassment. It ends with her choosing truth over image. She could have stayed vague forever. She could have protected the soft public version. She could have let people believe the split was simply complicated and mutual. Instead, she decided to say enough to free herself from carrying a story that no longer felt honest. That does not mean the internet deserves every detail. It does not mean Brian's silence should become permission for strangers to attack him. It does not mean Jen's healing will be quick, but it does mean she is no longer letting the old version of her marriage define the next version of her life. For years, Jen helped other people through pain. Now she is walking through her own. Not perfectly, not quietly, not in a way everyone will understand. But honestly, and maybe that is what people connected with most. She is not pretending betrayal did not destroy her. She is proving it did not finish her. Jen Hamilton's story is not just about an alleged double life. It is about truth, grief, and choosing to stop protecting someone else's image. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment, would you speak publicly like Jen or heal privately?